student and young professionals panel. Basically, we're here to talk about sort of our experience in J School and how we transitioned into the professional world, sort of what J School looked like recently, and what you as professionals can do to help young journalists who are trying to break into the J School world. My name is Wichter. I graduated from Medill at Northwestern last year. And while I was there, I studied journalism and also gender and sexuality studies. And along with Camille, we started the first LGBT reporting class at the school. I am currently between jobs in that I finished at New York 1 on Monday, and I'm starting at Dateline NBC this coming Tuesday. So that's what I'm up to now. I will let the panelists all introduce themselves, but a quick note before we get started. We're going to do sort of an open question format instead of like me asking them questions and then opening the floor later. So if you have anything you want to ask at any time, just jump right in. So I will let you guys start.
What's that start? Okay, I am Kaitlyn, Jakola. I know like half of you, so repeating what you already know. But I also went to Northwestern, graduated last year with a journalism degree. I took the class that they started, even though I had technically graduated by then, but I thought it was so cool, I want to be a part of it. I write for Autostraddle, which is a queer women's website. That's what I've been doing for the last year. And I just moved to New York, and I'm freelancing there and trying to actually figure out what my next step is. So this is, I suppose, a good panel for me to be on at this time.
Hello, I'm Camille, and for the last 5 years I've been following Zach around and doing exactly what he does. At least that's what I did at Northwestern. So I graduated from Northwestern last year. I doubled in journalism and gender studies. I revitalized NLGJA, our chapter with Zach. We were co-presidents and co-founders, and TA'd the first journalism class with Zach. And now I work at GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network, a nonprofit working for LGBT students in K-12 schools. I'm digital communications associate there, and I also run my own LGBT news and media blog called gayrights.org, rights spelled W-R-I-T-E-S because I'm punny. And for there, my audience is also primarily young LGBT people, teenagers, young adults.
Hi, Derrick Clifton. I'm an alum of Northwestern University, class of 2012, graduated with a degree in communication studies and double minored in gender studies and political science. At the time, I thought I was going to go into corporate or political PR, and that really switched quick because now I took a big pay cut. I'm doing journalism, but I absolutely love it. It is exactly what I need to be doing. I started a bit differently. I started writing as an editor, as a columnist for the Daily Northwestern, writing a bunch of opinion pieces along the lines of the intersections of race, gender, and feminism and sexuality, and I've continued that work as a freelancer. I've written for a variety of places, written for Windy City Times, Huffington Post is a blogger, written for the Daily Dot, and now I'm working currently as an editorial fellow at Mike Network, formerly known as Policy Mike, but am in between a transition because I will actually become a staff writer as of next week, which is really exciting. So I'm happy to join the team, and I work in the identity section, so we cover everything from race, from gender issues, LGBT issues, class, religion, nationality, etc. We do it from, this idea that all oppression and all identity-based issues are interconnected, the theory of intersectionality, which is why I entered journalism, because I wanted to make sure that message got out. I'm also working on a book called Heart Work. It's about, just a coming-of-age series of essays about navigating life and career from the vantage point of dealing with multiple marginalized identities. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess.
Awesome, thank you guys. So before I forget, I was supposed to ask you during the introduction to fill out one of these surveys at the end. So I made that note, and I'm free of that responsibility now. So let's start out by asking, how did you all find the LGBT media experience in college, and how did you work with LGBT journalists for experience in making connections to where you are today?
Who wants to start? Maybe you should start. You wanted to do it right away.
Great. I knew I wanted to do it right away, basically. So I was super duper closeted in high school, asked a teacher if I could start a GSA. She asked me to keep my voice down so that nobody else would hear that I had asked for it. So when I got to college and went to a Rainbow Alliance gathering and realized that there were queer people who were out and visible, and some of them even had newspapers that they produced, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So Northwestern's curriculum, a lot of the classes are flexible in that for your last sort of project, it's called your enterprise story for pretty much every journalism class you take. And you spend maybe the last 4 or 5 weeks of the quarter working on it, and it's in most cases an open topic. So I can say that pretty much for maybe 95% of my journalism classes, my final project was something LGBT related. And I just loved it. There was such an incredible variety of things you could do, especially being in Chicago. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, you've been wandering around here. There's such a great diversity, both in terms of lines of ethnicity and nationality and gender sexuality. There's really a lot that you can do. So once I figured out that that was actually a viable option for me, I dug pretty much completely into finding experiences that would match up with that. So I interned at The Advocate through Medill's JR program, which is an internship that's actually part of your degree curriculum. I tried to find a place that would allow me to do some LGBT reporting, which mostly worked out. I freelanced for the Windy City Times throughout school. I started vlogging while I was at school. I kind of tailored my all of my experiences, or as many of them as possible, to this one niche that I knew I wanted to cover. And I think we're going to talk more about that, whether or not that's the best way to do it. That may not have been the smartest move on my point, because I'm not necessarily a one-trick pony, but I'm like a 1.5-trick pony, because most of what I know how to do is queer. But I just, as soon as I figured it out, I said, okay, there aren't necessarily built-in resources at Northwestern for this. As we said, there was not an LGBT reporting class in existence, so I made my own curriculum in that sense, supplemented with gender studies coursework, and just knew I wanted to do it the whole way through. Met Doug Foster, our amazing NLGJA advisor, who guided me along the way into finding queer resources, and it was great. So that was my story.
Yeah, so you sort of cobbled it together, as you mentioned, and that's because it didn't exist, and that's why I didn't know that I wanted to do it for a long time. I knew that I was queer coming into college. I went to high school in the Deep South, where I didn't ever entertain the thought of telling anybody. Got to college and I wanted to pretend as though I'd always been out, but I hadn't had any practice being out and also being this person that I was publicly. So got to college and I knew I wanted to be a journalist, and I knew I wanted to be out, and I knew I wanted to do all these things, and I didn't have anyone sort of showing me how to combine them. Also through journalism classes, I ended up doing almost every single enterprise story on a queer topic. Totally not planned. I honestly couldn't think of interesting, good ideas that weren't queer ideas. And I mean, I was really lucky that that's how it happened, because I ended up realizing that I am passionate about it, and that those are the stories that get me the most excited, and that I have a personal connection to them, but I don't have to be writing about a queer person who looks and sounds and it has my background. But just because I'm part of the community, I developed that connection to those stories. So then I also began to sort of cobble it together. Instead of being brave and like starting an NLGJA chapter or whatever, I took the path of going to the traditional ways of practicing journalism as a college student. I was the editor of the newspaper. I did my JR newspaper, interned at different magazines. I tried to make each one of those experiences as queer as possible. I would try to pitch LGBT-related stories. Especially as editor of the paper, I tried to make sure that our writers knew what they were talking about and that they had the tools to write about those topics, even if they weren't queer themselves.